Everybody gets.
Yes.
All right. So this is the second part of how to get a technical job here in the US. And what is going through your minds? Actually, I've lived through it. Okay. But it is a very clinical approach um, to getting the job. This series is focused on how to prepare for an interview. Uh, let's start with the basics, okay? And start with the business attire. So many times, what we have seen is we find interviewers come in jeans and t-shirt, or khakis and a shirt. Think about it this way: your first impression is the best impression, okay? And who is your competition? Your competition is the hiring manager's own circle of friends and own circle of relationships when they have worked in the past. Okay. So when you're trying to create the first impression, your first impression starts with how you dress. I highly encourage that if you're a woman who is looking for a job, you're a male student looking for a job, make sure you have a business attire that impresses the interviewing team. It is okay to be overdressed than being underdressed. No sneakers, no tennis shoes, no shorts, no t-shirts. Just be um, uh, well groomed for the interview. The second basic is research your interviewer. Okay. Many of the team members do not research the interviewer well enough. And when typically your HR person who has probably shortlisted you will send a calendar invite, and on the calendar invite you will have a set of people whom you're going to meet. Start off with LinkedIn. Study them on LinkedIn, on who they are, what was their past background, where did they graduate from, are they functional managers, are they business managers, are they technology managers, are they hands on, are they tech managers. You will get a lot of information from LinkedIn. Then start looking for information about the interviewer. Have they done any podcast? Have they published a research paper? Have they published a blog? Have they written up technical articles? That should give you an idea on what kind of um, interview dynamics you will have with these people, these individuals. Um, the third basic here is you got to master your chit chat topics. And let me explain you what that means. Any company you will interview, as soon as you enter the building, you will be checked in by the front lobby. And then somebody will come to receive you and take you into the interview conference room. From the lobby to that conference room, that walk could be anywhere from 7 to 9 minutes. The key part here is you should never be silent during that 7 to 9 minutes of a walk to your interview conference room. This is where your chit chat topics come into play. So figure out, what is the latest going on in NBA? What is the latest going on in NFL? What are the key technology announcements that have happened related to that company in the last 7-15 days? And these chit chat topics are extremely important to break the ice from the front lobby to your conference room. You don't want to be quiet because that silence makes both parties very uncomfortable. Okay. So this is the time where you can have an informal conversation and make the interviewer starting to like you. The last but not the least, typically the interviewer will leave at the very end, will ask a question, and that question would be, do you have any questions for me? So don't create questions on the fly. Create questions that you want to ask the interviewer well in advance. And that's your opportunity to wow the interviewer. And what I mean by wow the interviewer, if your questions to the interviewer are well thought through and they are hard questions, the interviewer will start appreciating the originality and the uniqueness of your thinking. So these are the housekeeping things, but let's jump on to the next topic. What to expect in a technology interview, right? So every company has a method. Some companies will do 2 rounds. Some company will do 5 rounds. Some company will send you a problem statement that you need to program and code. Some would like you to open up your GitHub account and show your work. So there are a lot of different models and methods of a technology interview. You need to understand what type of technology interview does the company have in place. Typical ones are around case studies, right? So, you will be asked like, tell me how you will build AI model using Llama, or tell me how you will optimize a messaging pipeline on AWS. So you should be basically ready to understand these types of interviews. And it's all about getting to the next level. So many times candidates make the mistake that they are always thinking about the final round. It is not about getting to the finals. It's about getting to the next round. So when you start interviewing with an HR manager, your goal should be getting to the first round of technical. And what the HR manager is looking for is, do you culturally fit in their team? Okay, so if you go to any company, they have a section on their website on what their culture is. So you should read up on that. And when you are talking to the HR manager, you should resonate how you culturally fit. So that's one part. The second part is the skills you have and the skills you're willing to learn and invest in. And most often, the candidates forget to talk about the skills they are willing to invest in. And that's like the opportunity to get an upper hand in the HR round. And last but not the least, right, on-site versus virtual. If there is an opportunity, please force the interview to be on-site, because on-site is all about going back to my old statement of creating that first impression. And the more you can read the body language of the interviewer, the better prepared you will be to navigate the landmines that come in an interview. And last but not the least, right, you should basically have familiarity with the duration and the format expectation. There are some companies that would do a day of interview, right? So Google typically will start off with a recruiter screening questions, and then there are 1 or 2 technical rounds, and there are 4 or 5 on-site interviews that go from coding to behavioral questions and things like that. Okay, let's go to the next slide. This is the other one, preparing yourself mentally. Many times, candidates think that interview is a one-way conversation. Absolutely not true. Interviews are typically a dialogue. So you want to figure out a way where you are in as much control of the conversation as the interviewer. And the only way you can be control of the conversation is when you are participating in that conversation. So that's number one. Number two is you need to have your technology strengths. What I mean by that is there are times in the interview where the interviewer will drag you into a topic that you're not very good with. And it has to be in your ability to, when they drag you to the topic that is very weak, you should be able to bring back to the topic of your strength. And this juggle is what makes the interview very interesting. So, where I'm going with this concept is identify yourself on what topics you're good at. And every time you fall into a trap of a weak topic, try to bring the interviewer back to your topic of strength. Demonstrate humility. Okay. Confidence and humility. And what does that mean? Let's say the interviewer has given you a problem statement and said, go on this whiteboard and design a system. And maybe you are not the best one to design the system. I think the way you walk to the whiteboard, the way you start, painting the picture of the system design, the way you pause and think, and the way you accept this is the max you can design. There are other parts of this design that you cannot do, but you are an eager learner. You are a fast learner. You have, for example, learned, building AI agents within weeks. You need to start giving examples that demonstrates the confidence, but also bring the humility that technology is such a vast field and you're always hungry to learn. The last but not the least is the growth mindset. I think many times, individuals feel that they did not get it in the final round and they become disappointed. I think it is important to use that as a learning opportunity, because many times the decision making of who the right candidate might have nothing to do with how great your interview was. It could be because you have some immigration constraints. It could be because the company found an internal candidate that can be better suited for the position. It could be because they want to collapse two teams together. So there are a number of reasons which they will never share with you as to why you did not win the job, and you should not feel bad about it. This is extremely important. I find that many times candidates don't do their homework. So let's say you get an interview, you should put in at least 8 hours of work to really understand the company. So how do you understand the company? Of course, one is the website. But if the company is a public company, you should basically go and download their investor presentation. And the investor presentation talks about all the technology projects or all the technology spending they want to do in the next 3 to 5 years. So when you're going into an interview, you can now say that, I have written a message pipeline, or I have implemented Oracle services, and you can now come across sounding you exactly know what this company's requirements are. The other piece that is important is spend a lot of time on their careers page. Okay. Because careers page can tell you what kind of people they are hiring, not just the software engineering job openings, but also understand their sales openings, also understand their marketing openings, understand their operations openings. Because when you understand those pieces together, you are able to form a very educated opinion about how you are going to fit yourself in that organization. And last but not the least, read up on their competitors. Okay. Because in the interview, you can always throw names and what those competition is doing, that when you say this, then the interviewer thinks that you are very well-read person, and that impresses a lot in your conversations. Okay. there is other one, right? So almost every technical interview will have a programming aspect of it. And I think you need to brush up a lot on your fundamentals. The interviewer is not looking for you to develop the best application in the world. The interviewer is trying to understand, is your fundamental concepts very clear? And this could be around algorithms, this could be around data structures, this could be around databases, this could be around DevOps, um, this could be about design, this could be about infrastructure management. So I feel whatever your desirable job is, you need to prepare on those fundamentals. You need to understand the tools, the technology, the ability on how this technology is moving. For example, Kubernetes is one of the top technologies right now, but Kubernetes is also getting a proper fight from this technology called Nomad. Okay, you got Gen AI from ChatGPT, but you also got Gemini, you got Llama, you got Gork, you got Anthropic. You need to understand that ecosystem and come across very, very educated in the interview. This is a interesting one, and I have seen many candidates fail the non-technical questions. And non-technical questions is all about your ability to react to a situation. Okay. Um, there is a very known methodology. It's called the STAR method. And the STAR method is all about situation, task, action, and result. So typically, you will see a question come across, tell me a time where you had to resolve a conflict in your team. And, Dr. Bin talked about KPIs and metrics. There could be a question around that. What are the KPIs we should consider to measure your performance? Okay. And these are all non-technical questions, and there is no right or wrong answer to any of them. But what is important is, do you have the ability to think originally? Okay. And the ability to think originally, there is a methodology, like there is CMMI, there is ISO, there is a STAR. And STAR is all about acing your non-technical questions. This is all about weighing the pros and the cons. So for example, interview will say, what is your weakness? Now, this is a very good question on showing your reasoning skills. And one of the, if they were to ask me, I would say, my biggest weakness is I cannot sleep until I have solved a problem, because I'm a problem-solving guy. Now, doesn't it come across as a strength? But I'm calling it as a weakness because I don't know when to stop doing the work myself. So make those negative questions positive in your favor. Okay. And then, you need to start thinking about performing your best. Many times I have seen candidates not prepared to answer the things they have written on the resume. So my biggest recommendation is, your resume is your best and biggest asset. And you need to know in and out, in detail, and explain whatever you have written in the resume. So don't fill it with keywords, fill it with words which you can defend and talk. I have also seen many times the candidates do not ask for clarifications in the question, because they feel that if I ask for clarification, it will come across as a weakness. Actually, it's not. It's all about you demonstrating that you have eager learning skills or listening skills, every time you are asking for a clarification. Take your time to solve the problem. This is a technical interview. This is not a sales interview. Okay. So when a problem is given to you, take the time to pause. Let there be silence in the room. Many times I find the candidate becoming uncomfortable as if there is a ticking time bomb in the room that they need to answer very quickly. And that's not the case. Analytical behavior is as important as explaining your skill set. So one of the biggest value when you are looking at a problem is to pause, to calm down, to assimilate the problem, the scope of the problem, and how you're going to answer it. Manage your time effectively, right? There are certain questions that you will never have an answer. And it is okay to accept that, acknowledge that with a positiveness, with humility, rather than trying to answer in a very nonsensical way. Because the interviewer across you has many, many more years of experience. And they will see through your lies, or they will see through your depth of knowledge every time you give an answer. So it is important you basically start thinking about that. And last but not the least is handle your mistakes gracefully. I have seen candidates many times talk about when like we will ask like, hey, candidate, can you explain me this project that you have done? And they will say, oh, this project was done by my friend and I was just basically documenting this project. Okay. So where I'm going with some examples is be sure about yourself. Understand what you can and cannot do, and create your own playing field in the interview environment, right? I feel there is an opportunity to stay connected. So now imagine the life cycle of an interview. You are so well dressed that you have impressed the interviewer. As soon as you get checked into the lobby, from the lobby to the interview conference room, you are talking about chit chat topics that makes the interviewer comfortable, that makes you likable. And during the entire process of interview, you are having a dialogue and not a monotonous Q&A session. So now where do you basically end up sealing the deal? So imagine you have the company has two candidates. They both have done very well in the interview. Okay. But one sends a thank you email. One expresses the enthusiasm of joining, and the other does not. Who do you think will get the job? Obviously, it's the person who is expressing this enthusiasm. I also feel that many times companies don't respond for week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks because they are going through their own interview cycle. That does not mean that you have failed. That does not mean you have been rejected. So you need to be always persuasive about reaching out to them, even if there is a no response. And even if it means sending them 10, 11, 12 emails, you need, as a company, they have an obligation to tell you when they have rejected you. So please be forceful in seeking a response, even if they don't give one. So I feel that's sort of what my presentation is. I'm here to open up for questions, and I can answer them and make this more interactive.
Thank you, Sanjit. Any question? And is it related to interview, preparation of interview, or what Sanjit discussed last time? So, any question?